Hi, I'm Phil Harbottle, and this is my 68th video discussing British science fiction. In my previous videos, I've been concentrating on science fiction publishing history in Britain, especially the post-war period, when science fiction in Britain really became established. Several of my videos have looked at the significant roles played by popular authors in the 1950s who, whilst they wrote to put food on the table, also genuinely strove to entertain their readers. One such author was John Russell Fearn. And we see here, he's been the subject of several of my videos, and this magazine has an overview of all these scores of books throughout the 1950s. Creature from the Black Lagoon, especially notable, and a large bibliography. But these authors continue to be overlooked by the literati, who seek to airbrush these pioneers out of science fiction history in favour of their more modern and literate author friends. But these modern masters would have struggled to contend with the post-war austerity that blighted British publishing and the penny-a-word rates of their predecessors. One author who had to begin his career in the mushroom era and who managed to survive and transcend it over 6 decades, but who was nowadays rarely mentioned by the literati, was the late E.C. Ted Tubb. You will see Ted Tubb in this magazine article I did a few years ago. There's Ted as he was in the 1950s, and the magazine showed all these many books. That magazine was the subject of a separate video, some people may remember. Famous humorous series, westerns, and Tubb too had a vast bibliography, as we see there. So as I said, he's nowadays rarely mentioned by the literati, but I fancy this may be about to change. In 1969, I had been tasked with creating and editing a new British science fiction magazine to be called Vision of Tomorrow. I wrote to all of the British SF writers whose addresses I was aware of and informed them of this new short story market. Most of them welcomed the news and wrote back promising to create new stories especially for me. Authors such as Sidney J. Barnes, Ken Bulmer, Dan Morgan, Christopher Priest, William F. Temple, and E.C. Tubb. At that time, there were no science fiction magazines being published in Britain, and most of the established British writers had switched to writing novels for the American market and were no longer writing short stories. As the deadline for selecting stories for the first issue of Vision approached, I was particularly looking forward to receiving new stories by Tubb, who had been one of the first SF authors I'd ever read as a boy, and who had remained a personal favourite. But following his success in America with novels, especially his humorous series, Tubb had not written any short stories for 3 years. To get himself back into shape, Tubb had booked himself into a hotel so that he could write without distractions from his family. My printer's deadline for that first issue, timed to coincide with the first moon landing in July '69, duly passed, and whilst I now had sufficient material to make up my first issue, I had still not received anything from Tubb. So Ted had not been in my first issue as I'd hoped. See the contents page here, that first issue. British and Australian authors, but no Tubb. However, just a few days later, Ted finally submitted to me no less than 3 splendid new stories, consisting of 2 novelettes, Quarry and Trojan Horse, and a short story, Lucifer. Quarry would be the cover story for issue number 2, as we see there, whilst Lucifer and Trojan Horse would appear in issues 3 and 4 respectively. Here in issue number 3, there we see Lucifer, a new story by Tubb. There's the Gerard Quinn illustration, very nice. And Quinn also illustrated a story in number 4, Trojan Horse, which we'll see there. Now, the story of Lucifer told of a man who comes into possession of a mysterious ring. You can see that in the illustration. Turn back to it. Comes into possession of a mysterious ring, which we'll see there. And when it's pressed, the ring gives the wearer the power of shifting back in time for 57 seconds. A one-way time machine. His memory of his personal future ahead is still intact, which affords him the opportunity of undoing mistakes by altering his actions. The ramifications are endless and intoxicating. He can make love to his girlfriend till he's perfected his technique to do everything to bring her delight, as we see in the evocative illustration there. But there are dark sides to the ring as well. The sadist can inflict pain and even murder and then erase the deeds. Gamblers can become rich by betting with certainty on the result. The man enjoys a charmed, degenerate existence until he falls victim to a terrifying retribution. In my introduction to Lucifer, there, I wrote, Lucifer will long be remembered by Ted Tubb's many followers as one of his most outstanding stories. I little knew then just how right I was. Readers' letters were enthusiastic about the story. I recall that author Christopher Priest wrote me to say that the idea behind the story was inspired, and he devoutly wished that he could have thought of it himself. I'd recently met American publisher Donald A. Wollheim at the British Science Fiction Association annual Easter convention, and he'd asked me to send him copies of each issue of Vision as it was published. This afforded him first dabs at any story he considered good enough for inclusion in his series of Best Stories of the Year collections. Wollheim duly reprinted Michael Coney's story, Sixth Sense, from my first issue in his 1969 World's Best SF Stories of the Year. And the following year, Tubb's Lucifer was published in the year's Best Horror Stories, which you'll see there. It was anthologized in the year's Best Horror Stories, edited by Richard Davis for Sphere Books in 1971, and then it was reprinted by Wollheim's Door Books the following year. This collection also included another Vision story, Problem Child by Peter Oldale, from issue number 9. That was another World's Best story. originating in Vision. Thereafter, the quality of Tubb's story was soon recognised internationally. Lucifer was awarded the Best International Story of the Year Europa Prize at the Trieste SF Festival in Italy in 1972, and its first translation was in Switzerland. Which we see there, in the anthology called Dr. Doolittle's Crime Club number 4. This collection sold well and was reprinted in 1979. The story was also translated several times in Germany and in Russia. After I'd become Tubb's literary agent, in 1998, Ted told me that Lucifer had actually been rewritten from an earlier 5,000-word version of the story, Fallen Angel, and he sent me the unpublished typescript. This was essentially the same story as had appeared in Vision, but included a new introductory section which expanded on the origin of the ring. It had belonged to an alien from another planet, one of a small group of special people with rings who operated incognito on Earth, living lives of power and luxury. One of them had died in an accident, and his ring had been removed by a mortuary attendant before his colleagues could retrieve it. I thought this was a superb story, so I submitted it to the high-paying Playboy magazine in the United States. But to my disappointment, they never got back to me. So now, as editor of my own science fiction magazine, Fantasy Annual, I was very happy to publish Fallen Angel for the first time as the lead story in Fantasy Annual number 3 in 1999. It's the magazine which I edited with Sean Wallace, nowadays an American publisher. And there's the lead story, the new version of Lucifer, Fallen Angel. Let's see now. Ted Tubb sadly died in October 2010, and in June 2014, I negotiated a film option for Lucifer and Fallen Angel with Colour Drop Productions Limited for a substantial advance. This was an exciting prospect, as I'd also contracted an option for film and television rights to Ted's Humorous series of novels to 2 UK producers, Terry Marcel and Andrew Grocott. They planned to produce a television pilot episode of the first Humorous novel, Winds of Gath, to be followed by the rest of the novels chronologically, if the series was greenlit. Over the years since then, they've several times come tantalisingly close to producing the Humorous series, with the backing of big US networks. But just when everything looked to be in place in 2020, the plans were scuppered by the COVID crisis, when they were unable to fly to America to set things up with their showrunner and lead star, who had agreed to play Humorous. This week, Andrew and Terry sent me the following update. Terry and I are working on producing a pilot based on Winds of Gath and independent of any one end user, in order that we have a show to take to the market. We have our studio in New Zealand and lead actor Liam McIntyre signed up, and recently engaged a well-connected industry fundraiser to pitch the proposal and bring on board the private finance to fund the production. We will then engage a sales agent to take the show to market, with the added option to release it as a standalone movie to recoup the financier's investment. Having been privileged to see the excellent Winds of Gath screenplay by veteran filmmaker Terry Marcel, still remembered for his cult classic Hawk the Slayer with Jack Palance, I am confident that the film and television series will eventuate in the near future. Meanwhile, returning to 2014 and the story of Lucifer and Fallen Angel. Before the option period expired, Colour Drop renewed it for a further year, which indicated that the film was definitely still on. However, the second option period expired without the film being completed, which was a great disappointment. But evidently, whilst unable to produce the film, they had commissioned a screenplay, and this came to the attention of a dynamic US producer, Griff First, head of Curmudgeon Films in California. First had then obtained a copy of the contract, which gave my contact details as Tubb's agent, and he telephoned me and offered a fresh contract for his studio to produce a film of Lucifer and Fallen Angel. The new Curmudgeon Films contract was signed in April 2019, and a year later, its option period was renewed. This time, production did go ahead, but then the COVID crisis intervened. As soon as it could be resumed, progress continued, and filming was finally completed in 2022 under the new title of 57 Seconds. Much of the action was filmed in Louisiana, and if viewers of this video care to look on YouTube and search for 50 seconds, new movie, they will find a link to producer details recent Hollywood film shot in Lafayette, which includes a local interview with its producer Griff First. In 2011, the prestigious French science fiction magazine Galaxies ran a special tribute issue to E.C. Tubb with a 50-page dossier containing his French bibliography and feature articles by Richard de Norlien, the eminent French critic, author and translator, and also a piece by myself. I've shown this magazine in a recent video about Tubb's novel Starship. The features were accompanied by a Tubb story the editor adjudged to be representative of Tubb's finest work, Fallen Angel. This issue led to Norlien being commissioned by another publisher to edit a new series of author collections for Riviere Blanchard's Dimension series. Dimension E.C. Tubb was published in 2011. Dimension E.C. Tubb 2 followed in 2018. The third Tubb collection in the Dimension series is due to be published later this year and will feature his novels COD Mars and 5 short stories, including Trojan Horse from Vision of Tomorrow and Fallen Angel. In the meantime, Lucifer, in its 1972 Door Books edition, see there, that came to the attention of Stephen King and Bev Vincent, who were assembling an anthology, Flight or Fright, the basis for which was unusual and frightening stories involving flights on aircraft. Bev Vincent contacted me and I agreed terms for the inclusion of Lucifer in their anthology. This turned out to be one of the best deals I ever concluded. Flight or Fright, originally published in the US by Cemetery Dance Publications in 2018, has proven to be an international bestseller and has been reprinted in hardback and paperback in countless languages and countries worldwide. Here we see its Hodder UK edition and the editor's note to me, which is worth taking a look at, I think. That's what the Hodder editor thought of Tubb's story. Its impressive roster of 17 authors included the likes of Ray Bradbury, Roald Dahl, Richard Matheson, John Varley, David Scow, as well as Tubb and Stephen King himself. Have a look at the contents page. There. Let's see the lineup of the top authors. Now, Griff First's new film, 57 Seconds, is based upon it. There we see the poster for his new film. It stars Josh Hutcherson, best known for Hunger Games and the TV series Future Man, and Hollywood legend and Academy Award winner Morgan Freeman. Greg German, Bevan Brew and Sammy Rotterby make up the rest of the main cast for 57 Seconds. It's directed by Rusty Cundiff, celebrated for his work in the horror and comedy genres, most notably the Tales from the Hood films, as well as 2 episodes of Creepshow. Cundiff also co-wrote the screenplay with Macon Blair, who's also writing and directing the upcoming The Toxic Avenger remake, and was recently seen on screen in one of the year's biggest summer blockbusters, Oppenheimer. 57 Seconds premieres in movie theatres and releases on digital and other platforms on September the 29th this year, with the DVD release in November. Hutcherson stars as Franklin Fausti, a tech blogger who's about to get the interview of a lifetime with Freeman's billionaire tech visionary Anton Burrell. His career-defining moment is cut short when he thwarts an attack against the inventor. In the aftermath, Franklin finds a ring Burrell dropped that allows the wearer to jump back in time by 57 seconds. Sensing an opportunity, he teams up with Burrell to bring retribution to the pharmaceutical empire that's responsible for the death of his sister and for ruining the lives of his family. His actions spark a horrifying chain of events that thrust him into a race against time, where crucial seconds could be the difference between life and death. This looks to see a must-see film for all Ted Tubb and science fiction movie fans, and I predict that some of Tubb's other classic stories are set to be brought to our screens in time to come. And whilst we wait, we can see this film's first official trailer on YouTube and elsewhere.
It's the ring. I teach you back in time. You ever had something so crazy happen to you? You can barely believe that it happened.
We have developed a neurotechnology that allows you to be your best self. You're still you, just the best you. Who and why?
It's the ring. I teach you back in time, 57 seconds. It's unreal. Lucky number 7. 15.
15, luck.
Yes! Thank you very much.
Did you rob a bank?
I went to the casino, I got super lucky. I had like a bit of an edge.
Franklin, who is this?
That's my twin sister, Natalie. She actually OD'd on a pain pill they gave her. That pill killed my sister.
I detect the desire for justice.
Sig Thornton was responsible for the death of thousands with a drug he knew was devastatingly lethal. But how do I make sure that never happens to anyone again?
You're asking the wrong questions. The real breakthrough.
It's time travel.
Ignore the naysayers, Franklin, because money can buy you happiness.
This is not about your sister. This is about power.
Don't let the intellectual fear in here keep you from pursuing what's burning in here.
I wish I'd done some things differently.
thing. Did you use it with me?
You just keep going back and redoing things till you get it right. Is that what a better future looks like?
There's not enough time.